This morning, I want to start out talking about surveillance by others. Each American, you're being watched. And don't say, hey, it's old paranoid Doug. No, it's not paranoid, it's a fact. You're being watched all the time. Each American, I looked it up, is captured on security cameras 238 times a day. You're on video. No longer do you have to wait for Candid Camera and Alan Funt to say, smile. No, you're on camera. In fact, average American every day, you're going to be filmed 160 times driving your car today. They got little cameras all over every intersection. 40 times at your job, 24 times while shopping. You're going to Walmart, smile. They're watching you. They're paying people to watch you. 14 times you take a walk through your neighborhood. I think I'll take a nice solitude walk. 14 times you were caught on camera walking through your neighborhood. And that's not even counting the stuff they're doing with the technology in your home. You know, when your little Alexa box, you think it's cool. Alexa, order soup from this restaurant. That's being tracked. They can actually listen on that device. Have you seen where people have those baby cameras for the helicopter moms? You know, and people hacked into it, and pedophiles were spying on kids. A lot of people got rid of those cameras real quick. Since 2005, the National Security Administration, under the Patriot Act, NSA, every single text you have, every email, every call you have is swept up in what's called metadata and is stored on a gigantic set of hard drives out west. Every single thing you do. It's recorded. That's proven. If you use Google, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, TikTok, or nearly any of the social sites, they're tracking your every move. I saw a documentary where two experts in this field happened to see what Facebook was recording. This guy in England and a guy out in Washington. And because that little thing says, I agree. You don't read it. I know you don't read it because I don't read it. I can't read that small, that long on that stupid of a device. Can't do it. Oh, I agree. And they say for marketing purposes, they're going to take all your data. And so these experts went online and said, okay, what exactly is Facebook tracking on you? And he looked up and he found in the software where they tracked when he ordered pizzas, everything he watched and stuff. And by law, they have to give you a setting that you could opt out of it. You remember how we used to broadcast on Messenger on Sunday mornings and all of a sudden it stopped working? I found out why it stopped working. Because old Doug changed the settings on his thing. And then they don't want to play nice anymore. Oh, well, if you're not going to do that, then we're going to mess with it because we don't want Mr. Safety. That's why we don't do that. We are being spied on all the time. FBI, CIA, NSA, ATF, IRS. If you have 3 initials in your organization, they're probably spying on you right now. Do you know, here's the neat part. I shut my phone off in order to record this lesson. Okay? Did you know if you have a cell phone on right now? Well, I don't have it on. I have it on Buzz, Doug. Well, do you know they actually can listen to everything we're saying right now? And that's good. Because we're going to have a four-alarm gospel presentation. So if you're listening to this, and I guess that's one way to boost your attendance in worship, we are being watched all the time, both in and out of our home. But then there's one that's so big. Let me tell you, there's something going on right now as we speak. There is a technology that dwarfs every single one of these. By far. They are watching these people. I want to tell you about, there's a surveillance system that's more powerful than all others combined. This morning's lesson is on spiritual surveillance. I mention this because this system blows the other ones away, by far. All these dark shadows in the government and dark shadows. You know, if you got TikTok, you basically, it's already been proven that China, anyone who has TikTok on their phone, China has direct access to all their data. They have it. You think nobody saw what you were texting the other day? Oh, it was seen. It was recorded down. Every single keystroke you have, you add up all those, believe me, nothing was done in privacy. Nothing electronically is done in privacy. Unless if you are a hermit living on top of one of the Alps, herding sheep that don't have anything embedded in their fluffy little skin, you're being watched. Well, this surveillance system not only sees everything you do online, on your websites, your emails, phone calls, and monitors your conversations, but watches your entire life, both publicly and privately. It's called the spiritual surveillance, and God heads that program up. His technology can determine with a high rate of accuracy the thoughts of a person's mind. God's surveillance watches us 24/7, monitoring everything you do, including the thoughts you have right now. Oh, you're taking it to extreme. God heard that. He knows that. You see, God is omniscient. God is omnipresent. That means He knows all. He sees all. He is wherever you're at. He sees it. Now, this is interesting. You might say, oh, well, but come on, Doug. Come on. No, you better wrestle with this one. Because God isn't God if God isn't this. Okay? Now, let's look at a little greasy programmer somewhere out in one of these tech places. They type up a program. They put in little keystrokes that allow them to monitor you. They write the program for you. Do you think they get a bunch of chimpanzees and they just hit the keyboard till something comes out? No, it's programmed to do that exact same thing, including feeding back the information to the designer of that. That's how it works. No doubt about it. Okay, so how does God know what we're doing? Well, God is a programmer too. Your DNA is digital software that converts to 3D objects. That's what they boil it down to. It's the most complex thing ever written. That men like Bill Gates and other famous programmers, they look at human DNA, which has billions and billions of double phosphate codes between the helixes. I mean, it is a genius program. It literally does everything for your body. God made that. You don't own the patent on DNA. Nobody does. God does. He designed it. And man will scratch their head till Jesus comes back to know how that stuff runs. Are you telling me that if Felix down in the basement of Spokane, Washington can hammer out a little program on his computer that can track you right now? I hope you're listening, Felix, if you're there. You don't think God also has stuff that reports back to Him? That's just one of the ways God is tracking us right now. And it knows your exact thoughts. In fact, it even knows what you're going to think. That's some powerful software. Well, I'm thinking about doing that. God says, God doesn't go, oh. You know, this sound has never come out of God's mouth. You think that took God by surprise? No. He knows what you have need of before you ask Him. And He wrote into that software called our DNA, and it can easily report back to Him exactly what's going on with you and me. God sees all. He knows all. He's watching all people all time. Hebrews 4:13 says, and there's no creature hidden from His sight, but all things are open and laid bare to the eyes of Him to whom we have to do. God saw it. We don't have to say, boy, I wish walls could talk. Walls don't have to talk with God. God sees through walls. God knows what the software is sending back to Him. And if we're doing stuff we shouldn't do, God knows. Proverbs 5:21, the ways of a man are before the eyes of the Lord. He pondereth all his goings. Not some, all of his goings. Proverbs 15:3, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, watching good and evil. With spiritual surveillance, God saw it all, including those websites you've been watching. The way you talked about your boss behind his back. That television commercial with that woman in the bathing suit that caught your eye. Yeah, you don't think the software didn't go back on that? You don't think God got something? You got mail. Oh, look. Oh, Doug. Job asked in 31 verse 4, does He not see my ways and number all my steps? Well, let's answer it. Yes, no, or absolutely, positively, without a shadow of a doubt, yes. He saw it. Because if God doesn't see, God can't be God because God's a liar. And God doesn't lie. And I'm going to trust the one who wrote the program which caused my existence. Until I figure out DNA, until I find anyone who figures out DNA or could write something better, I'm going to trust the programmer. If you're a child of God and believe what the Bible teaches, then you know God is not insignificant like NSA, but 1 billion times more advanced. Doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not. Did you know that? If you're thinking about, well, I'm scared, I'm just going to kind of back away. I don't want to become a Christian because then maybe that activates it somehow. No, it's already in you. If you are you, or whatever pronoun you want to choose this week, no matter what it is, if you're listening online, God is watching you right now. How do you feel now? You're watching us, God is watching you. And God already knows what you're thinking, and it's going to be shouted from the rooftops on the day of judgment. It's all coming out. 2 Chronicles 16:9 says, for the eyes of the Lord move to and fro throughout the earth, that He may strongly support those whose heart is completely His. Job 26:6, naked in Sheol before Him, and Abaddon has no covering. Job 34:21, His eyes are upon the ways of His man. He sees all His steps. Do you remember that heavy person you saw walk by and you thought in your mind, oh, man, what's going on? And you're probably overweight too, like me. And you think that. And you misjudged her or him. His spiritual surveillance saw that person and saw you. He also knows how hard she struggled her whole life. He knows her soul just like He knows your own soul. He's always watching. Do you remember that coworker you spoke bad about last week? Well, you know what I heard. You don't think God picked that up? God already saw it coming. I bet you forgot that God heard what you said and He wasn't laughing but was saddened. He wants you to know that your coworker didn't have a friend in this world, was hoping you might change that. Do you remember that guy you cursed on the road when he cut you off in traffic? You offered him the middle digit of fellowship, or you did something you shouldn't have, and then you drive on and you say, okay. And it was probably on the way to church. You don't think God saw that? I tell you, the most challenging thing for people with families, the most challenging time I always found as a Christian man, was on the way to church. Because when you get a bunch of other people got to get in that car, they all don't go at the same speed. You arrive at the same rate of the slowest person. Oh, that's because I'm prompt. I always want to be early. I really, really try to do that. Would have we reacted differently? Would we live our life differently if we just take this one concept that God is omniscient, omnipresent, that God has spiritual surveillance, and He's watching? Would we change the way we're walking? Psalm 119, verse 168. God's tracking us. I keep your precepts and your testimonies, for all my ways are before you. Jeremiah 16:17, for my eyes are on all their ways. They are not hidden from my face, nor is their iniquity concealed from my eyes. Jeremiah 32:19, whose eyes are open to all the ways of the sons of men, giving everyone according to his ways and according to the fruit of his deeds. God is watching. And it doesn't matter how we try to frame it. It doesn't matter how much we dress up on Sunday or how many hallelujahs we say. The real test is, do we believe God is watching? That there is a spiritual surveillance? Because if we don't, we're never going to change. We're never going to change. Brothers and sisters, I don't write this in exemption, for we're all guilty of this, because God is watching all the time. And that's, I think, the primary reason why we stumble, because we don't think God is watching at that moment. You'd never do that. In fact, picture it this way. Take your ugliest, darkest moment, the thing you struggle with. Do you invite your friends from church, your brothers and sisters over, and do that in front of them? Why not? Because it would be shameful. Well, okay, but God is always there. You see the difference? If you always want to live a righteous life, then we must always believe and hold first and foremost that God is this: spiritual surveillance. Psalm 133, 13 and 14. He saw it all. God looks from heaven. He sees all the sons of men. Psalm 124, 1. He neither slumbers nor sleeps. Psalm 32, 8. I will counsel you with my eyes upon you. God is watching. And we should be concerned that we're being spied on all the time by meta platforms and authority figures and agencies with 3 digits. They're watching, and that should bother you, because they're not God. And we need to expect a certain level of privacy. On the other hand, the information they have is nothing compared to what God sees. So if you're okay with the government and tech giants and foreign powers watching you all the time, then you should go see somebody about that, because that's not what God wants for you in your life. However, if that's how we are, then let's go all the way, and I want you to see the one who spies on them, because He sees all. You know, we got to make sure we don't live a life of a hypocrite. And here's how we live a life of a hypocrite. That word, hypocrite, hypocrites, is hupo, under, kratis, mask. It's you know how you say actor in the first century? Hypocrites. It means under the mask. One actor would have all these masks, and they'd hold the mask, say, hey, I don't do that. Or they'd go, Romeo, Romeo, art thou fair Romeo. And then they switch the mask, and they all play one part. And you never know who the real actor is under the mask. That's why they called them hypocrites. That's why you see in the ancient symbol, happy mask, sad mask, with a little ribbon underneath it. I've seen that in archaeology many times. Well, God knows who's under the mask. verse 4, verse 6, verse 18 of that chapter 6, where he says about fasting, praying, and giving. Don't be like the hypocrites, because your Father sees you in secret and rewards you openly. God is never fooled by the mask. If we're going to ever have genuine Christianity in our life, we must hold one principle above all others, and that is God literally sees all. He literally sees all. Hosea chapter 7 verse 2. Hosea chapter 7 verse 2. Now their deeds are all around them. They are all before my face. When we keep in mind that God has us on surveillance, then watch your walk change. Because it's not what we do public, it's what we live privately that defines the person. We never want to outwardly appear righteous to men, but inwardly we're full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Otherwise, instead of going through and meditating on the blessings, you should meditate on the curses that come our way. So in closing, it's very simple. Challenge this week and the rest of our lives is to be completely hold in your mind this important attribute of God, omniscience. Say it with me. Say omniscience. That should be right on the forefront of our mind when we get up. God, I know you're watching. God, I know you see. If we just really focus on the omniscience of God, we will live a better life for Him.